Robert Redford and Paul Newman were one of Hollywood's most amazing duos that people will never forget. But for many years, Redford stayed quiet about the real man behind all the fame and what their friendship was really like. Now at 89 years old, he's finally talking about it, and what he says isn't all nice things. Come with us as we learn about Robert Redford's long-awaited words about Paul Newman and the story that fans never got to hear before. From Nobody to Sundance. Robert Redford was born as Charles Robert Redford, Jr. on August 18, 1936 in Santa Monica, California. He was born right in the middle of the Great Depression, a time when families all across America were having a really hard time making ends meet. Redford's own family didn't have much money either. His dad, Charles Robert Redford, Sr., worked delivering milk before he got a steady job as a scientist who worked in labs. He was the kind of guy who was practical, reliable, and believed that working hard was important. His mom, Martha Hart, had a completely different effect on her son. She was a freelance artist who drew pictures for advertisements, someone who brought art and creativity into their home and taught Robert to see how beautiful the world around him was. This mix of parents shaped him in a really important way. From his dad, he learned how to be disciplined and steady. From his mom, he got a love for art and using his imagination. His childhood wasn't fancy or glamorous, even though he grew up pretty close to Hollywood. The family didn't have lots of money, but young Robert could see bits and pieces of the movie business nearby. The big billboards, the movie premieres, and people talking about famous actors. Even though it might not have seemed clear back then, being around all this planted tiny seeds that would one day grow into a lifelong connection with movies. Redford went to Van Nuys High School in the San Fernando Valley, a place where he first started trying out acting and drama. He wasn't the best student and didn't always do what teachers expected him to do. But being on stage gave him a way to express himself. In school plays and drama classes, he discovered how exciting it was to perform and tell stories. This wasn't yet the smooth charm he would later show on movie screens, but it was the first hint of his natural talent. After he graduated, Redford signed up at the University of Colorado in Boulder. At first, he wanted to study architecture. His interest in designing and building things showed the smart, thinking side of his personality. Architecture required being exact, patient, and having vision. These are qualities that would later help him when he became a movie director. But his heart wasn't really into it. He admitted himself that he wasn't focused on school. He was more interested in exploring new ideas and experiences outside of the classroom. His time in Colorado also included personal problems, including drinking too much alcohol, which made him question what he was doing with his life. Eventually, he realized architecture wasn't right for him, and he made a brave decision to move toward the arts. This big change took him to Europe, where he traveled around and drew sketches, soaking up all the culture there. When he came back to the United States, he decided to take acting seriously. He moved to New York City and signed up at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, one of the most respected schools for actors. There, Redford got structured training and discipline that turned his rough interest into professional skills. The Academy taught him how to use his voice, how to move, and acting techniques while also connecting him with teachers who saw his potential. It was in New York that Robert Redford, who used to be a restless student, became committed to learning how to act. Redford's acting career started in the late 1950s. First, with small parts on television. TV was really popular at that time, and many young actors got their start on shows that had different episodes. He appeared in programs like Maverick and Perry Mason, playing guest characters that gave him real experience being in front of cameras. Each role helped him learn how to adapt quickly, understand what it was like working on a set, and find confidence in how he presented himself. By the early 1960s, he was also getting parts in movies, though these were often small ones. Hollywood quickly noticed how good-looking he was, and casting directors often wanted him for pretty boy roles. This was a problem for Redford. He wanted to be taken seriously as an actor, not just admired for how he looked. He fought against being put in the same types of roles and tried to choose parts that gave him more depth. Sometimes he got frustrated by how slowly his career seemed to be moving forward. But each time he appeared in something, it built up his reputation, and soon bigger opportunities would come his way. These early years weren't filled with instant fame, but they gave him the foundation he needed. They also gave him a deeper respect for the work of acting. By the time his major breakthrough came, Redford wasn't just another good-looking face. He was a trained actor with discipline, vision, and determination. Robert Redford's beginnings were shaped by creativity, struggle, and never giving up. And what came next would finally put him side by side with Paul Newman on the road to becoming famous. When Redford met Newman. By the late 1960s, Robert Redford was steadily working as an actor, but he wasn't yet a name that everyone knew. That all changed in 1969 with the release of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. The film was directed by George Roy Hill and put Redford together with Paul Newman, who was already one of the biggest stars in Hollywood. Casting Redford in the role of the Sundance Kid wasn't an obvious choice at first. The movie studio had worries that he didn't have enough star power to handle such a big role. But director Hill believed in him, and Newman himself supported the decision. That leap of faith gave Redford the opportunity that completely changed his career. The story of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid was based somewhat on real-life outlaws of the American West. Newman played Butch Cassidy, the talkative, quick-thinking leader, while Redford took on Sundance, the quieter, deadly accurate gunslinger. On paper, the film was an action western, but it was also a story driven by characters about friendship and loyalty. The natural chemistry between Newman and Redford lit up the screen. Their back-and-forth conversation felt effortless. Their trust in each other was believable, and their shared sense of humor kept audiences hooked. What made the film stand out was the way it changed what buddy movies were like. Until then, Hollywood partnerships often followed strict formulas. In this film, the partnership felt relaxed and modern. Audiences loved how Newman's charm mixed with Redford's cool confidence. Together, they created a new model for friendships on screen. One where humor, trust, and being equals were as important as the story itself. Redford's portrayal of Sundance gave him a defining character. He was tough but quiet, serious but charismatic. The image of him as the outlaw with sharp instincts and a calm presence became part of American pop culture. Posters of Redford as Sundance hung on walls, and the character's mix of rebellion and quiet strength influenced how future films showed heroes. Almost overnight, Redford went from a promising actor to a Hollywood icon. 4 years later, Redford and Newman got back together for another film with George Roy Hill, The Sting. This time, instead of outlaws, they played con artists in Depression-era America. Newman took on the role of Henry Gondorff, an experienced con artist, while Redford played Johnny Hooker, a young hustler learning how to do cons. The film was stylish, clever, and filled with twists. What made it shine, though, was again the chemistry between its two stars. By this point, their friendship off-screen gave them an easy rhythm on screen. They could finish each other's lines, playfully challenge one another, and make complicated cons seem fun to watch. Stories from the set show how lighthearted the atmosphere was when the two were together. Redford and Newman were known to tease each other constantly, keeping the crew entertained. At the same time, they took their craft seriously. They improvised small moments, added touches of humor, and balanced the charm of their characters with the seriousness of the story. That balance gave the film a unique energy. The Sting became even more successful than Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. It won 7 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, and made Redford and Newman one of Hollywood's most profitable duos. Industry insiders and fans alike began to use their names as shorthand for charisma and credibility. If Newman and Redford were in a film together, audiences expected quality, charm, and chemistry. The two films didn't just give audiences great entertainment. They also laid the foundation for a real friendship between Redford and Newman. Unlike many Hollywood partnerships that were marked by rivalry or big egos, theirs was built on genuine respect. Newman, already established, never tried to overshadow Redford. Redford, still building his career, never resented Newman's success. They encouraged each other and trusted one another's instincts. Offset, their connection grew stronger. They shared a similar sense of humor, often playing pranks or joking during downtime. Both valued their privacy and had little patience for the empty side of Hollywood fame. This made their bond even stronger as they could understand pressures that few others could relate to. What stood out most was the lack of competitiveness. Many actors struggled when paired with someone of equal talent, but Redford and Newman thrived on it. Their dynamic allowed each of them to